So in our last session, we talked about the how to hire people. So today what I want to concentrate on is how to motivate and good retention for a team once you've hired these people. So you've gone through the process of selecting the right people for your team. What do you do now to make sure they stay motivated and they continue like working for you? So it all boils down to a good firm culture. And the reason that firm culture is so important, well, there's a few obvious reasons. The most obvious reason is that a good firm culture will ensure good firm retention. So it'll reduce the turnover that you have. So that's only part of the reason, or part of the things that you need to work on is to retain your team. Because again, a good firm culture will reduce turnover. But the other thing that's also fairly obvious is that a good firm culture will reduce absenteeism. In other words, just people being absent. Because most of the time, whenever you have high absenteeism, is because they're not exactly thrilled about being at work. And the other thing that will help is punctuality. People will tend to come in more on time if you've got good firm culture. Other elements that is far less obvious about good culture is it'll foster creative thinking. And something that I've recognized in my own team is that whenever we had team meetings and so on, the creativity we had in our team to come up with great ideas and all of that was phenomenal. And I think a lot of that came from the culture we had developed, where we're very much helping each other out and wanting the best of the firm. And that came from the great culture that I think we had developed here at our firm. Also, maybe less obvious is good culture will foster caring amongst team members. So something that I've noticed is that, and I was always quite impressed with, is how team members took care of each other. And I'm not only talking about knowledge, in other words, training others on how to do a tax return, bookkeeping, or accounting. But I'm also talking about how they cared about one another, about the stress they were living and all of that. And that became even more apparent during tax season. Because let's face it, tax season usually brings out the best and the worst out of everyone. So one of the things that I've always recognized as being part of the importance of good team culture is the helpfulness that they had towards one another in times of stress. So that is extremely important. And if you can have people really enjoy where they're working, and now they see their fellow teammate having a hard time with whatever they're doing, it was kind of important that, to me, that there be a foster of caring for one another. So good culture will often result in that happening. Another great byproduct of having a good, strong team culture was the whole recruiting side of it. So what we noticed is that recruiting became a lot easier when everybody's excited about being here. And oftentimes, we would receive applications without us putting an ad out. And then when I would inquire as to why they applied, they would talk about people who worked here, who raved about the quality of working in our environment, and therefore would suggest to their friend to apply working here.
I love my job.
I love my job too.
So it also helped really foster bringing in recruits for people to work at our firm. And again, that came with developing and working on our culture. And the other thing is that a good culture will help promote the firm. Because let's face it, your team will be exposed to a whole bunch of people out there all the time. And the likelihood of them meeting potential clients is extremely high. Wouldn't you want them to be excited about working for you and about your firm, so that when they talk about where they work, they're excited about it? And let's face it, a client is far more motivated in working with a firm where they feel that the entire team seems to be excited about being there. So building a team culture, we talked about the importance of building a team culture, but what I haven't talked about yet is how do you go about doing that? And what some people seem to think is that building a good team culture is about doing fun activities. Doing fun activities is one of the things, but it goes well beyond that. And in fact, strangely enough, building a good team culture is a lot of work. And some people would say even it's hard work. It all depends on where you're coming from. So it's something I always enjoy doing. So building team culture, I never considered it as work, but rather something that I enjoy doing. When I'm saying that building a firm culture is work and it requires attention, what I'm talking about is for the leader to take the time to walk around and get to really know your team. And take the time to just ask them as often as you can, and preferably even every morning to some extent, is what are you working on? Are you having any problems with anything? Is there anything I can help you with? And just asking them those critical questions to find out if there's anything you can do to make their lives better. Now, one thing I think is critical is that you understand that you, as the owner of this practice or CEO, your task is not to service the client and make sure they're well serviced. Believe it or not, I don't think that's your responsibility. Your responsibility, or number one responsibility, is to take care of your team. Make sure your team is really on board, they like what they're doing, they know what they're doing, and they're thriving. Because if your team is doing well, you don't have to worry about the clients, they will take care of your clients. So you have to make your team your number one priority. The other important element that I always struggled a little bit with is the whole prospect of staying in tune with your team. Now, I'll have to admit, and I think that comes with the territory of being a guy, men aren't the best at picking up on what's going on amongst their team members. But I was always fortunate enough to have on my team a few people, often more on the women's side, who were able to highlight some of my weaknesses as it relates to really picking up on what was happening in my team and being aware of it and being sensitive to it. So if you're like me and you recognize that you may not be as sensitive or as aware of what's going on amongst your team members, be sure to recruit amongst your team people whom you've noticed are really aware of what's going on to keep you in the loop so that you can react to people who are suffering, who are struggling, and who maybe just need a little bit of a hand up so that you can then go and help those people out in your practice. So again, be aware of your weaknesses if it comes to that, and find someone who can fill in that role of making you aware of all the shortfalls that you have as it relates to relating to your team. One of the things I always found more difficult in being a good leader, well, first of all, is recognizing the difference between being a manager and a leader. And everybody has a different definition of what that means, but to me, the difference between a manager and a leader is that a leader is someone that people want to follow and will have followers without having to take out the whip. One of the criteria of a good leader, I think, is the ability to look at themselves, recognize their weaknesses in themselves, their strengths, and really work on both of that, but mostly work on their strengths, believe it or not. So I was always, I think, had a natural ability to communicate and connect with my team, and so I made sure I played that card often and played it well. I think a good leader also needs to show and be able to show vulnerability, and that is really difficult to do. So every now and then I will come into work and I am necessarily not on top of my game. We can't always be excited about what we do. Let's face it, I think we're all human. There are days where we would rather quit as well. So it's to be able to communicate that to some degree to your team without making them feel as if, well, that you're off. It's okay to show them that today's not a good day. I'm a little bit off my game. I hope to come back tomorrow with a better batting average. So it's okay to show vulnerability to your team. And the other thing that it'll do is that you may find that showing vulnerability will increase the probability of them being more at ease in communicating with you. Because who wants to communicate with a leader who never shows any weakness? So I never had a problem with that. I had plenty of weaknesses to show. So people, I think, felt more at ease in sharing some of the weaknesses with me. The other part that I found sometimes a little bit difficult with leading a team is it sometimes feels very unrewarding. And I work with a lot of other practitioners, and a lot of the practitioners that I work with often find that the team that they're working with to be very draining. So again, it goes back to the previous session that I did about selecting the right team. If your team is draining you all the time, then I would suggest one of two things. Either you're not meant to lead, or possibly you just have the wrong team. Your team should not be a total drain all the time on you. And for me, it was quite the opposite. I always found that my team would fill my tank and would charge me up. And I think that's a good sign of my ability, I guess, select the right team. So it's a matter of charging yourselves up to have people who are able to make fun of you, do crazy things in the office, and pump your battery up. So that's all part of having a good firm culture, is to be able to have fun together and to be able to really be more like a family rather than a working team. So working on a great team culture is something that would require a lot more time and I can share with you, and I plan on sharing with you a whole bunch of things that we've done at our office here that I think contributed immensely in building a great team culture. But it would take way more than what I can cover in this session to share with you all of the things that we've done, that we've tried, that have worked, as well as things that have not worked in really helping build a team culture. But I think it's important that you make it a priority, that you make your team and its culture a number one priority, like I said, even ahead of your clients. Make that the most important thing that you do. And so I hope to share with you in the sessions to come things that we've done, that we've tried, that really helped build team culture. And in closure, I'll have to say, I've made a living in public practice. I've had a team from very early on in my practice, and it has been an extremely rewarding career. And I would not give it up for anything in the world. And part of the reward obviously came from servicing the clients and seeing the difference you can make in their lives. But if you were to ask me what part of being in practice I found the most rewarding, hands down, not even close, would be working with my team. They were really the life of working here. It was extremely rewarding, and I loved every part of that. So having a good team working behind you can make working and coming to work so much more fun. And I would make that, and if you can make that a priority, and if you can enjoy building a team like I have, man, I'm telling you, it's going to be a hell of a good life. So in conclusion, I suggest you stay tuned. Like I said, we're going to do several sessions on team building, and I'm going to be throwing ideas at you on things that you can do. So we hope that you stay tuned, subscribe, and click on that little bell, and then we'll keep you posted of all the different things you can do that will really not only build your team culture, but possibly make working a lot more fun.